Hello everyone, and welcome to Tom's Kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make some basic sandwich bread. Okay, here's the stuff you're going to need to make your bread. Got water, flour, salt, yeast, I'm using honey, and then all your tools. We also have an extra additive to the sandwich bread, and that's going to be dry non-fat milk and potato flakes. Don't need it, but I'm using it. Alright, let's get started. So I filled up my measuring cup with some water and I preheated it to about 110 degrees, 115. Something I forgot to mention, you should probably get a thermometer. We're going to add some honey. You can use this if you want. Okay, so I got 2 tablespoons of honey and a cup and a quarter of water. Preheated. We're going to stir it up a little bit so it gets dissolved. Okay, that's good. I'm using 2.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast. Put that right in there. The brand is Red Star, and I store this in my refrigerator. Okay, we're going to stir this up a little bit, and this is called proofing. It's just to ensure that your yeast is good. Okay, on this I'm going to use my timer, and I'm going to set it for about 10 minutes. Go. And so what's going to happen is this is going to get kind of fluffy, and that's going to tell you that the yeast is good, it's working. After that's ready, we're going to pour it into our glass bowl full of flour. Alright, so I've added 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, so we're going to start with this first. Putting in 1/2 cup of dry milk, add that in there, that's good enough. Okay. And also 1/4 cup of potato flakes. 1.5 teaspoons of salt. This is sea salt, not iodized salt. It's a bitter salt. So I'm going to give that a little stir, make sure everything's mixed up well. 10 minutes is up, and you can see the yeast has gotten really frothy there. And alright, we're just going to pour this right in there and start stirring it up. There we go. I find it a little easier to start off with less flour than putting more flour in there, because you can mix it up with a whisk, kind of get all the ingredients mixed in well. Okay, now I'm going to put the rest of the flour in. So we've already put 1.5 cups. Depends on where you're at. You know, if you're in a drier climate, you're probably going to use more water. In a humid climate, you're going to use less water. And we're not using a blender, obviously. I'm doing all this by hand. We're going to throw some flour on there, and we're going to start kneading the dough. Get your hands full of flour. We've only used about 2.5 cups of flour. Just going to dump that right on there. Okay, here we go with the kneading process. It usually takes about 5 to 10 minutes. You want to knead your dough until everything is incorporated and the dough starts feeling elastic. It's going to be a little sticky at first. If it's too sticky, you want to keep adding a little bit of flour at a time, and you know it's done when it's basically just a little tacky, very little though. You don't want too much flour because your bread will come out too dense. So this is how you knead the dough. Everybody kind of does it differently, so just do what's best for you, I guess. But what I'm doing is I'm taking the top part of the dough here and I'm flipping it over, and then I'm pushing down with the palms of my hand, and then I turn it quarter turn and do the same thing. Flip over, push down. Flip over, push down. Okay, what's happening here is the dough is getting a lot more elastic. If I push in, it's just going to come out. It doesn't leave an indentation, so that means the dough is about ready. So basically about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so that's about it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of oil in here. Take some canola oil. Use olive oil. The reason I've put oil into the bowl is so that the dough doesn't stick to the glass as it rises. You want to let this rise until it's about doubled in size, which will probably take about an hour. Alright, so before we go away here, we're going to put some saran wrap on top. Just cover it over the bowl, just like that. We're also going to cover it with a towel. Okay. The dough has risen about twice its size. So we're going to punch it down here. One way to check it that it's done, stick your fingers in there, and if it leaves an indentation, then it's good. Bam. Okay. And we're just going to take it out, put it right on here, and I'm going to knead it just a little bit. Now what we're going to do is flatten it out, get it ready for the pan. I'm going to kind of flip it, make it into like a log, basically. Twist off the ends. This is going to be the bottom. Flip it over. And we take our pre-greased pan. We're just going to set it right in there, like that. And we're going to let it rise again for another 30 minutes or so it doubles in size. Now if the dough comes up above an inch within the 30 minutes or sooner or whatever, that's when it's ready to go in the oven. You don't want to let this sit too long during its rise, maybe not over 40 minutes, because then it exhausts the yeast and it may fall in the oven. So we're going to cover this with the same saran that we had from before, like that, just to keep the draft off it so it doesn't dry out. And then we're going to let it sit for another 30 minutes or until it doubles in size, and throw it in the oven at 350 preheated. Okay, it's been about 30 minutes. Let this going for about another 35 minutes. And we'll have some bread. Okay, here's our bread the next day. We're going to cut into it, show you what it looks like.